Being at home these days probably means that you're not buying as much takeout coffee, which is a great time now to share how we make our coffee and how you can brew a better cup at home. Coffee snobs will tell you that you need to buy the latest coffee equipment to make a really good cup of coffee at home. They'll tell you that every single detail matters, and some of them do, but what I want to do in this video is simply make pour over coffee a little bit more approachable so that you can brew yourself a very yummy cup throughout the day. So first things first, don't worry if you don't get all the details right. It doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does. There is no right or wrong. Well, there kind of is. But what I am saying is your taste buds and your preferences matter just as much. So for example, I was talking to a friend the other day and he told me that he did everything right, but still the cup of coffee still tasted really sour to him and he didn't like it at all. He was just used to darker roasted beans and this whole new specialty coffee bean thing was just not up his alley. And that's okay. So take into account what kind of palate you have, whether you like stronger coffee, brighter, lighter coffee, things like that. So what the heck is specialty coffee anyways? Specialty coffee is a way to introduce some objectivity to something that is so subjective. Anytime we talk about food, whether it's apples, wines, even French fries, we all have our preferences and we all have different ratings. Now, specialty coffee is a unified way of grading coffee so that we understand this is a good coffee, this is an okay coffee, this is a bad coffee. So how does coffee classify itself as specialty coffee? So in order for coffee to be considered specialty, it actually has to have a few characteristics for it to be classified as that. The first thing is it's got to be defect-free. So when you open your bag of coffee, what it shouldn't have are these dry chafed flakes. Chafe? What is it?
I don't know.
So when you open your bag of coffee, it can't have any dry flakes to it. It can't have any abnormal shapes, kind of like a fruit. Coffee bean is coming from a fruit, a coffee cherry. And so if it has abnormalities or discoloration or anything like that, it can't be specialty. It should look uniform and it should look nice. So the second thing that makes it specialty is its traceability. You actually need to be able to trace from the farmer to the producer, to the green bean buyer, and then to your roaster, where it's ultimately roasted and packaged and then into your home. So when you grab a bag of specialty coffee, ultimately you want to look for a few things that will determine whether it's traceable or not. The four things that you're probably looking for are the farmer or the lot that it's found in, the country of origin, the processing of the bean, and the sea elevation of where the coffee bean was grown at. Third, the way a coffee is graded. Coffee is usually graded on a scale up to 100. Now this can seem really daunting and feel really unapproachable, and we could easily get distracted by, well, who grades it and how is it graded? But just remember that these standards are about ultimately two things. One, that there's some guarantee of quality for both the farmer and the consumer, and so farmers can say, hey, I produced a coffee at this level and be compensated properly for it. And two, so you can reasonably expect a yummy cup of coffee, so let's not overcomplicate this. Now with everything that I've mentioned already, you won't find coffee in a large grocery store because they aren't produced in large batches. Specialty coffee is relatively small batch, it's family oriented, and it's personal. So what grocery stores and chain coffee resort to is to buy cheaper coffee from mass producers, which they end up having to over roast a little bit to hide the defective tastes, and that's why you often get a darker, bitter cup of coffee. So what are we hoping to achieve when brewing then? Coffee can taste sour, sweet, or bitter. In this simple diagram, you can see that it's all about extraction of flavor. In the beginning, you extract mostly the sour stuff, and then you hit your sweet spot. And then if you steep your coffee too long, it's like steeping tea too long, and you get this bitter aftertaste. So time, heat, and how much water you use matter. So then how should we brew our coffee? This is what you'll need. You'll need a kettle for water. A gooseneck is nice, but you can probably use any type of kettle that has a regular spout. 2. You'll want the water to be anywhere from 92 to 95 Celsius. If the water isn't hot enough, you won't extract enough of the good stuff. And if you go way too hot, you'll just taste all the bitterness. 3. If you don't have a temperature controller, just boil your water and add a splash of cold water, and it should bring it down enough. You'll also need a coffee grinder. You'll need a pour-over brewer. In this case, we're using a Kalita Wave, but you can use anything that has a filter at the bottom. You'll need a scale to measure out your ingredients. And finally, you'll need time. Pour-over coffee isn't for everybody. It's not for someone who needs to rush out the door every morning. But if you think it's worth your time to slow down just a little bit and enjoy a small treat, these extra few minutes are worth it. For this recipe, we're going to make enough for 2 small cups, so measure out 25 grams of coffee beans or grinds. You'll be adding 400 milliliters of hot water, and you're going to want to first bloom the coffee. Blooming simply means to add about 50 to 100 milliliters of your water and then let the grinds bubble. This bubbling helps the coffee release any trapped CO2, which can add a sour taste to your coffee. Then we continue to pour the rest of the 400 milliliters of water into the filter gradually so that we don't flood the whole filter. Ideally, from the first moment you're pouring the water in to when you're finished, you should aim for about 3 to 3.5 minutes. If it's too short, you'll only get the sour bits, and if you brew too long, again, you're gonna get all the bitter stuff. But again, keep trying different times and different temperatures and see how you like your coffee. This is just a starting point. If it's filtering too fast, you need to make the grinder a little finer. And if you're filtering too slow, you need a coarser grind. So that's it. I know it was a ton of information and you probably have some questions. If you have any questions about how to make a better cup of coffee at home, leave me a comment down below. If you liked it and this video was helpful in any way, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye!